The first mistake was trusting my best friend with the weather app. The second mistake was letting her talk me into taking the narrow trail back to camp because, according to her, storms build character. The third mistake was not bringing the extra sleeping bag. By midnight, rain was hammering the tent so hard it sounded like someone dumping buckets of gravel over our heads. And Molly Hart was lying 6 inches from me in my only dry sleeping bag, her wet hair smelling like cedar smoke and cheap gas station shampoo. Then she turned toward me in the dark and whispered, "Are you awake?" I didn't answer right away. Not because I was asleep, because I was 29 years old enough to run payroll for a construction company without panicking, old enough to change a tire in the rain, old enough to know when a single sentence could ruin 10 years of friendship if you handled it wrong. My name is Owen Briggs. I live in Spokane, work as an estimator for a family-owned construction outfit, and until that camping trip, I had a very firm rule about Molly. Don't look too long, don't imagine too much. Don't be the idiot who mistakes closeness for possibility. Molly and I met when we were 19 at a community college orientation neither of us wanted to attend. She was sitting on a planter outside the auditorium, eating trail mix and reading the campus map upside down. I told her. She looked at it, flipped it right side up, and said, "That explains why I thought the library was a lake." That was Molly. Dry humor, quick smile, stubborn as a locked toolbox. She became my best friend because she made life feel less heavy without pretending it wasn't heavy at all. Back then, I was trying to be the first man in my family to build something besides a record of bad decisions. My father had left when I was 12. My mother worked double shifts. I learned early that needing people was risky and wanting them was worse. Molly never pushed. She just stayed. Through bad apartments, broken trucks, my mother's surgery, her disastrous engagement to a guy named Trevor who wore loafers to a barbecue and called burgers protein rounds. Through all of it, Molly was the person I called when something went wrong, and the person I didn't call when something went right because good news always made me want to hear her voice too much. The camping trip was her idea. 3 days, she'd said, leaning over my desk on a Wednesday afternoon like she owned the place. No email, no spreadsheets, no pretending you enjoy fluorescent lighting. I looked up from a bid packet. Some of us are essential to the concrete economy. Owen, you once named a printer Gerald. You need mountains. I named him Gerald because he jams under pressure. So do you. I should have said no, I had deadlines. She had a new job starting the following week at a nonprofit that ran outdoor programs for kids, which was perfect for her and terrible for me, because it meant she was growing into a life that would keep taking her farther from mine. Instead, I said, "Fine, but I'm not eating anything called dehydrated chili." Molly smiled like she'd won more than a weekend. "You'll eat it and you'll compliment it." That was how we ended up driving north on Friday, windows down, her bare feet on my dashboard despite my repeated objections. "Feet off the dash," I said. "My feet are clean." They were clean before you stepped into a gas station bathroom wearing sandals. She lifted one foot closer to my face. "Molly, what? You scared of a little intimacy?" I nearly missed the turn. She laughed, and I pretended the sound didn't settle somewhere under my ribs. The campsite sat beside a narrow lake wrapped in pines, the kind of place where the air tasted cold even in summer. We set up the tent together, bickering over pole directions and stake angles like an old married couple, which was a phrase I carefully avoided thinking. At one point, she stood on the other side of the tent, hair falling loose from her ponytail, cheeks pink from the climb, holding two poles crossed in an obvious disaster. "Don't say it," she warned. I wasn't going to. "You were." "I was going to say you've invented a new structure. Very brave." She threw a sock at me. Later, we cooked by the fire. Or rather, Molly cooked, while I supervised with the authority of a man holding instant coffee. She wore my gray flannel because the temperature had dropped faster than expected. The sleeve swallowed her hands. I tried not to stare at how natural she looked in it, standing there in the firelight, blowing on a spoonful of chili before offering it to me. "Open. I don't trust you. You trust me with your emergency contact information. That's different. You can't season that. Owen." I opened my mouth. She fed me the chili, and for one ridiculous second, everything went quiet except the crackle of the fire and her eyes watching my face for approval. It tasted terrible, I swallowed. Complex. Her mouth curved. That means bad. It means layered. It means you love me too much to hurt my feelings. The word love landed between us, casual and old and dangerous. I reached for my coffee. Your feelings have survived worse. Her smile softened, just a little. Yeah, they have. That was the first shift. Small enough to miss if I'd wanted to, but I didn't want to miss it. After dinner, we sat side by side on a log while the lake turned black and the first stars came out. Her shoulder brushed mine every time she moved. Neither of us moved away. She told me she was nervous about the new job. You, I said. Molly Hart, queen of pretending confidence is a food group? She nudged me with her knee. I'm serious. I know. The fire popped. She looked down at her hands. What if I'm good with kids because I'm fun for a weekend, but not good enough when it matters? I'd heard Molly joke through heartbreak, laugh through stress, and sing loudly when she was scared driving on icy roads. But that voice, thin and honest, made me want to reach for her. So I did. I took her hand, not dramatically, not like in a movie, just my fingers wrapping around hers in the dark. You're the person who notices when people pretend they're fine, I said. Kids need that. She stared at our hands, then she squeezed once. You say things like that and expect me to stay humble? I gave up expecting humility from you in 2017. She laughed, but she didn't let go. For almost 10 minutes, we sat there holding hands beside a dying fire, pretending it was comfort and not something warmer. Then the wind changed. Molly looked up. That cloud wasn't there before. I followed her gaze. The sky over the ridge had gone bruised and heavy. You said no rain, I reminded her. I said low chance. You said, and I quote, basically impossible. That sounds like something future me would deny. Within 20 minutes, the storm rolled in hard. We scrambled to secure the food, kick dirt over the fire, and drag everything loose under the tarp. Rain came sideways. Molly slipped on wet pine needles, and I caught her by the waist before she hit the ground. For one heartbeat, she was pressed against me, both of us soaked, breathing hard, her hands gripping my jacket. You okay? I asked. Her face was inches from mine. Rain ran down her temple. Yeah, she said, but she didn't move. Neither did I. Then thunder cracked overhead and we both jumped like guilty teenagers. Tent, she said. Great plan. We dove inside laughing, breathless, dripping all over everything. That was when we discovered the damage. Her sleeping bag had been pushed against the back corner of the tent where the seam had leaked. It was soaked through, her extra clothes were damp. Mine, by some miracle, were mostly dry in my pack. Molly stared at the ruined sleeping bag. Well, she said, wringing water from the end of her braid, this is inconvenient. I unzipped my bag. You take mine. She gave me a look. Absolutely not. Molly. No, you get hypothermia and then I have to explain to your mother that I killed you with poor meteorology. I can sleep in my jacket. You can't even sleep if a refrigerator hums weird. I'm being heroic. You're being stupid. We argued for 5 minutes, both shivering, until the tent flashed white with lightning and Molly's teeth clicked together hard enough to end the debate. So we did the practical thing, the terrifying thing. We zipped our jackets together under us as a barrier, changed into the driest layers we had while politely staring at opposite tent walls, and climbed into the same sleeping bag. It was built for one person, not one person and the woman he'd been quietly in love with for years. Her back pressed against my chest. My arm had nowhere to go except around her waist. Don't make this weird, she whispered. I stared at the dark roof of the tent. I'm the picture of normal. You're holding your breath. I'm conserving oxygen. She laughed softly and I felt it move through her body into mine. Outside, the storm battered the trees. Inside, Molly's hand found mine beneath the edge of the sleeping bag. Not by accident. Her fingers slid between mine. My heart stopped pretending. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then, in the dark, Molly turned carefully until she was facing me. Her knee brushed mine. Her breath warmed my chin. I could just make out the shape of her eyes. And that was when she whispered, Are you awake? I could have lied. It might have been safer, easier, a quiet fake snore, a little shift away, and we could wake up in the morning with our friendship still folded neatly between us like a map we both knew how to read. Instead, I whispered, "No." Molly's mouth twitched in the dark. Convincing. I've been asleep for hours, very talented sleep talking. Do you always sleep talk in full sarcasm? Only during natural disasters. Rain slammed against the tent. Somewhere above us, a branch creaked in the wind. But inside the sleeping bag, the world had shrunk to her face, her hand still caught in mine, her knee touching my thigh. Molly was quiet long enough for my pulse to become embarrassing. Then she said, "Can I ask you something? That depends if it's about the chili." "It's not about the chili." "Then proceed." Her thumb moved once over my knuckle. I felt it everywhere. "Why didn't you ever like Trevor?" I blinked. Of all the questions she could have asked while pressed against me in a storm, that one had not made my list. Because he called burgers protein rounds. Owen. And because he wore driving gloves in a hatchback. She huffed a laugh, but it faded quickly. "I'm serious." So was I, suddenly. Trevor had been gone for 2 years and still his name hit a sore place in me. Not because he'd won her, because he'd had her and treated the privilege like a schedule inconvenience. I looked at the shadow of her face. "He made you smaller." Molly went still. I wished I could take it back, not because it wasn't true, but because truth had weight. It changed the air. "What do you mean?" she asked. "When you were with him, you apologized before you talked. You checked his face after you made jokes. You stopped singing in the car when he was around." Her breath caught softly. I kept going because apparently storms made me reckless. And once, at my birthday, you laughed at something I said and he put his hand on your back. Not hard, just enough. And you stopped laughing. Molly didn't answer. Outside, thunder rolled farther away now, low and tired. I hated him for that, I admitted. Her fingers tightened around mine. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because you loved him." "No," she whispered. "I thought I was supposed to." That went through me in a way I didn't know what to do with. She looked down between us, though there was barely enough light to see. I stayed longer than I should have because leaving felt like admitting I'd been wrong about my whole life. "You weren't wrong about your whole life. I was wrong about him." "Yeah," I said, "but you were right about leaving." Her eyes lifted to mine. It would have been so easy to brush it off with a joke, to say something about Trevor's loafers and make her laugh until the moment passed. But Molly had reached for honesty, and for once I didn't want to hide behind being the steady friend. "I should have told you," I said, "that he made me smaller, that you never seemed small to me." The words sat between our faces, warm and exposed. Molly's gaze dropped to my mouth. Every sensible part of me panicked. "Molly," I said, because her name was the only warning I had. "What?" "If you keep looking at me like that, I'm going to do something stupid." Her voice was soft. "How stupid?" "Potentially friendship altering." The corner of her mouth lifted. "You always did overestimate your danger level." I swallowed. "I'm serious." "I know." Her hand left mine, and for one awful hey second, I thought she was pulling away. Then she touched my jaw. Not accidentally, not practically. Her fingertips found the line of my cheek like she'd wondered about it before. Like this wasn't just the storm or the cold or a bad decision made under nylon. My chest hurt. "I'm awake too," she whispered. That was all she gave me. That was enough. I kissed her. Carefully at first. A question more than a claim. Her lips were cold from the night air, then warmer when she kissed me back, when her fingers slid behind my neck and she made a small sound that erased every rule I'd ever made about not wanting her. I had imagined kissing Molly more times than I was proud of. None of those daydreams included rainwater dripping on my ear or my elbow falling asleep beneath me. None of them included both of us trying not to knock our foreheads together in a sleeping bag designed by someone with no appreciation for unresolved romantic tension. She pulled back an inch, breath shaking against my mouth. Well, she said. I closed my eyes. If you say complex, I'm walking into the lake. She laughed and kissed me again. The second kiss wasn't careful, it was familiar and new all at once, like finding a door in your own house you'd somehow never opened. She pressed closer. I wrapped my arm around her waist, and this time it wasn't because there was nowhere else to put it. It was because I wanted her there. When we finally stopped, it wasn't because we wanted to. It was because the tent roof sagged under a fresh sheet of rain and dumped a cold trickle down the back of my neck. I jerked. Oh, that is personal. Molly clapped a hand over her mouth, laughing silently. Don't laugh. I've been attacked. You're very brave. I need medical attention. She leaned in and kissed the corner of my jaw. Better? My brain emptied. Worse, I said. In several ways. Her smile faded into something tender. We should probably talk, she said. People always say that after kissing. Because kissing makes talking necessary. I was hoping kissing could make talking obsolete. Owen. I sighed. Yeah, we should talk. But neither of us did immediately. Instead, we lay there with our foreheads nearly touching, listening to the storm soften. Her hand rested on my chest like she was checking whether my heart was still overreacting. It was. Finally, she said, I don't want to wake up tomorrow and pretend this was weather-related. Relief hit me so hard I nearly laughed. Good, I said, because I was already preparing a terrible speech. About what? About how I've been in love with you for a while and have handled it with remarkable emotional cowardice. Her fingers stilled. The silence after that was not small. I opened my eyes. Molly was staring at me. For a while? She repeated. My mouth went dry. That was the part you heard? All of it, actually. My brain just dropped the rest and circled that in red. I forced myself not to retreat. Yeah, for a while. How long is a while? I thought about lying by omission. Months sounded manageable. A year sounded poetic. Years, I said. Molly inhaled. I rushed on because now that I jumped, falling seemed better than hovering. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to make your life harder. Or lose you. Mostly lose you. And because every time I thought maybe you looked at me differently, I convinced myself I was seeing what I wanted to see. She was quiet. Too quiet. Then she smacked my shoulder. Ow. Years? That's the part you're upset about? Yes, Owen, years. I have wasted excellent flirting. I stared at her. She looked offended on behalf of herself. Do you know how many times I asked you to zip my dress before weddings? I thought you needed help. I could reach. You said you couldn't. I was creating atmosphere. I blinked into the dark. You made me fix your garbage disposal in a tank top. That was not flirting. That was plumbing. Good to clarify. She groaned softly and hid her face against my chest. I felt her smile there. Then quieter, she said, I didn't know it was love. Not at first. My whole body went still. She lifted her head. I knew I wanted you when things were awful, and when they were good. I knew I compared everyone to you, which is unfair because you are annoyingly dependable and have very nice hands. My hands? Don't get cocky. Too late. She pinched my side through my shirt. I caught her hand and held it over my heart. Her playfulness softened. After Trevor, I didn't trust myself, and you safe, important. I couldn't risk ruining the one relationship in my life that felt like home. I brushed wet hair from her cheek. Molly, I'm not saying I've been in love with you for years, she said, then winced. That came out wrong. Devastating, but continue. I'm saying I think I was walking toward it for a long time. I just didn't let myself name it. My throat tightened. That's enough, I said. Her eyes searched mine. Is it? For tonight? Yeah. I kissed her forehead. We don't have to solve 10 years before sunrise. She relaxed against me, and the sleeping bag suddenly felt less like a crisis and more like the only place I wanted to be. By morning, the storm had broken. Pale light seeped through the tent. Birds started yelling as if they personally had invented weather. My arm was numb, my hair was damp, and Molly Hart was asleep with her face tucked under my chin. For one perfect minute, I didn't move. Then she mumbled, "If you're watching me sleep, that's creepy." I smiled. I was admiring my survival skills. Her eyes opened, sleepy and blue-gray in the morning light. We survived one shared sleeping bag and one emotional breakthrough. Two if you count the chili. She stretched, which in the confined space meant pressing against me in ways that made coherent thought difficult. Then she froze. The awkwardness arrived late, but it arrived wearing boots. "So," she said. "So. We kissed." "We did." "You said love." "I did." "I accused you of wasting my flirting." "Correct." She bit her lip, then looked at me through her lashes. "For the record, I'm still mad." "About the flirting?" "About the years." Her fingers walked up my chest. "You owe me back pay." "What's the rate?" She leaned in until her mouth hovered over mine. "One kiss per missed hint." "That could bankrupt me." "I'm willing to set up a payment plan." I was smiling when she kissed me, and this time in the gray morning after the storm, it felt less like a secret and more like a beginning. There are mornings that feel like a reset. That one felt like someone had picked up my entire life, shaken it hard, and set it down 3 inches to the left. Same tent, same damp socks, same pine needles stuck to everything we owned. Different Molly. Or maybe not different. Maybe I was finally allowed to notice all the things I'd trained myself not to see. The way she watched my mouth when I talked. The way she smiled before she kissed me, like she was already pleased with what she was about to do. The way she stole my dry sweatshirt without asking, then stood outside the tent in the misty morning light with her hair tangled over one shoulder, looking like the reason men used to write terrible poetry. I was packing the stove when she said, "Stop that." I looked up. "Stop what?" Looking at me like I'm a scenic overlook. "You're wearing my sweatshirt and one sock." "It's a strong outfit." "It's upsettingly compelling." Her grin was instant. "Upsettingly?" "I'm coping." She crossed the campsite, stepped over a puddle, and stopped directly in front of me. "You know, I expected you to be more panicked." "I'm panicking internally." "Ah, construction guy panic, load-bearing repression." I set the stove down. "Molly." "What?" I glanced toward the trees, though no one was around. "I don't want this to become a joke because we're scared." Her expression changed. That was the thing about Molly. She could fence with words all day, but when something mattered, she heard the quiet part. "I don't either," she said. My chest loosened. She took my hand, right there beside the wet fire pit and our sad collapsed tent, and threaded her fingers through mine like she'd been doing it for years. "We can still joke," she said, "but not instead of being honest." "Deal." And honestly, she looked down at our hands. "I want to go home and not give this back to the old version of us." I rubbed my thumb over hers. The old version had some good qualities. The old version had emotional constipation. I preferred restraint. I know you did. I laughed and she stepped closer until the toes of her boots bumped mine. "What do you want?" she asked. It sounded simple. It wasn't. I wanted the whole impossible list. Coffee with her on weekdays, her toothbrush in my bathroom, her laugh from the passenger seat, her bad weather predictions, her hand reaching for mine in public because she wanted people to know. But wanting out loud still felt like touching a bruise. So I started small, brave enough. "I want to take you on a date." Molly blinked, then smiled slowly. "A date? A real one? Not fixing your disposal while you pretend that wasn't flirting." "It wasn't. You brought me lemonade." "It was July." "You wore perfume." "I am a woman of mystery." "You asked if I thought sundresses were practical." She winced. "Fine, maybe that one was flirting." "I want dinner," I said. "A place with actual walls, no dehydrated anything. I want to pick you up, be nervous at your door, and tell you you look beautiful without pretending I'm commenting on fabric durability." Her eyes softened until my voice almost failed. "I want to try," I said. "Not drift. not accidentally fall into something and then get scared. Try. Molly rose on her toes and kissed me. It was brief, sweet, and absolutely ruinous. When she pulled back, she whispered, Friday. For the date? For you to be nervous at my door. I nodded solemnly. I'll begin hydrating. The hike out should have been miserable. Everything was wet. The trail had turned to mud. My pack weighed approximately the same as a compact car, but Molly walked ahead of me humming, occasionally glancing back with a smile that made the whole forest look staged. At a tricky slope, she held out her hand. I can manage, I said. I know. I took it anyway. Halfway down, she slipped, I caught her, and we both froze from old habit and new permission. Her hands landed on my chest. Mine settled at her waist. Careful, I said. Her eyebrow arched. Are you using trail safety as an excuse to touch me? No. Owen. Yes. She laughed and kissed my chin because my mouth was slightly too high, and she was too impatient to wait for me to lean down. By the time we reached my truck, the clouds had opened into pale blue. We threw our wet gear in the back, changed shoes, and sat in the cab with the heat blasting. Neither of us reached for seatbelts right away. Molly stared out the windshield at the empty trailhead. Do we tell people? The question landed with more weight than I expected. Do you want to? I asked. I don't know. She worried at the edge of her sleeve. My sleeve. Part of me wants to rent a billboard. I know a guy with scaffolding. And part of me doesn't want everyone making it a thing before we know what the thing is. I nodded. Then we don't announce it, not yet. Her gaze flicked to me. Are you hurt by that? No. Then, because we'd made a deal about honesty, I added, a little scared maybe, but not hurt. Scared of what? That secrecy is where courage goes to die. She absorbed that. Then she unbuckled, though she hadn't buckled, and slid across the bench seat until her thigh pressed against mine. My mom knows I love you, she said. My lungs forgot how to work. Molly's eyes widened. She knows I love you as a person. She has been suspiciously Team Owen for years. Your mother once told me I had reliable shoulders. She was objectifying you for my benefit. Good to know. Molly smiled, then took my face in both hands. I don't want to hide you because I'm ashamed or unsure. I want a little room before the people who love us start imagining holidays. Holidays? My aunt would assign us a casserole by Thanksgiving. That is fast. She's ruthless. I covered her hands with mine. Room is okay. You mean that? I mean Friday is ours. After that we figure out Saturday. Her relief was visible. She kissed me softly, then rested her forehead against mine. This is weird, she whispered. Bad weird? No, best weird. On the drive back, we tried to act normal and failed immediately. She put her feet on the dash. I said, absolutely. Not. She said, you kissed me in a sleeping bag. You've lost dashboard authority. I will never lose dashboard authority. You said you loved me, and I still respect passenger safety. At a red light in a tiny town with one gas station and a mural of a trout, she reached over and linked her fingers with mine on the gear shift. We stayed like that for miles. Every so often I caught her smiling at the window. What? I asked. Nothing. Suspicious nothing. I'm just thinking about all the times I almost kissed you. My grip tightened. How many? She glanced over. You really want to know? Yes, no, yes. Your sister's wedding. I groaned. I knew something was off that night. You were dancing with me and you smelled good, and you called me Malls in this stupid soft voice. That's my regular voice. It is not. When else? When you built my bookshelf and got sawdust in your hair. I looked like a workshop accident. You looked competent. It was upsettingly compelling. I laughed. She looked down at our hands. And the night Trevor moved out. The cab went quiet. I remembered that night too clearly. Her apartment full of half-empty boxes. Her face pale and furious. Me assembling a cheap lamp because doing something with my hands was easier than watching her try not to cry. You fell asleep on my couch, she said. sitting up like a guard dog with back problems. I didn't want you to be alone. I know, her voice softened. I almost kissed you then, but I thought maybe I wanted comfort, not you. And now, she turned toward me, no joke in her face at all. Now I know the difference. I had to stare very hard at the road. When I dropped her at her apartment, the late afternoon sun was behind the building, turning all the windows gold. We stood by the trunk with her wet pack between us, neither of us moving to end the day. So, she said, Friday. Friday. Don't bring chili. Wasn't planning to. Wear the blue shirt. I narrowed my eyes. You have an outfit preference? I have eyes. Heat crawled up my neck, which made her grin. Then she stepped close, fisted her hands lightly in the front of my jacket, and kissed me like we weren't in her parking lot, like this wasn't goodbye, like she had every intention of making me useless before walking away. When she pulled back, I said, That was aggressive. That was a missed hint installment. I'm deeply in debt. Good. She lifted her pack and headed toward her stairs. Halfway there, she turned. Owen? Yeah? Her smile was nervous this time, but bright. I'm glad you were awake. I stood there long after her door closed, grinning like an idiot beside my mud-splattered truck. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Molly. Friday is too far away. A second later, come over tomorrow, I'll cook. Then a third, not chilly. I'm flirting, not committing a crime. I spent Sunday doing what any calm, emotionally mature man would do after kissing his best friend. I cleaned my truck twice, tried on 3 shirts, and stood in the grocery store holding 2 bottles of wine like they were evidence in a trial. Red felt too date. White felt too casual. Sparkling felt like I was proposing in aisle 7. I bought flowers instead. Then I sat in my truck outside Molly's apartment at 6:58, staring at a bunch of yellow tulips and wondering when I had become a man who sweated through his shirt before dinner, with someone who had once seen him vomit after bad gas station sushi. My phone buzzed. Molly, if you're in the parking lot overthinking, stop it and come upstairs. I looked toward her second floor window. She was standing there, smiling down at me. I typed back, I'm not overthinking. I'm respecting punctuality. Her reply came instantly. Molly, Owen. I got out. She opened the door before I knocked. For 1 second, we just stared. She wore a green dress I had never seen before, soft and simple, with her hair pinned up badly enough that loose pieces had already escaped. She looked nervous, beautiful, like Sunday night had dressed itself as a question. I held out the tulips. These are not chilly, her mouth curved. Strong opening. I rehearsed. I can tell. She took the flowers, then leaned in and kissed me. Not long, not dramatic. But it happened in her doorway with her neighbor's terrible hallway light buzzing overhead, and somehow that made it feel more real than the storm. When she pulled back, her cheeks were pink. Hi, she said, hi. You look nice. I glanced down at my blue shirt. I was instructed. I have excellent taste. In men or shirts? Her eyes flicked over me. Recently, both. I nearly dropped my keys. Dinner was pasta with lemon and garlic, bread warming in the oven, and a salad Molly admitted she bought pre-chopped because romance should not require shredding cabbage. We moved around each other in her small kitchen with the awkward grace of people learning a new dance in a room they already knew by heart. I poured water. She handed me plates. Our hips bumped at the counter and we both apologized too fast. Finally, Molly set down the tongs and faced me. This is ridiculous. What is? I have known you for 10 years. You have assembled furniture in this apartment. You once killed a spider in my shower while I screamed from the hallway. It was a large spider. It had ambition. She stepped closer. The point is, I refuse to be shy with you in my own kitchen. Good policy. Excellent policy. Then she took my hands and put them on her waist. My heart kicked hard. Oh, I said. She lifted an eyebrow. Too advanced? No, I'm just updating the floor plan. Her laugh came out soft, relieved. I drew her closer. Is this okay? Owen, I put your hands there. I'm being thorough. Be less thorough and kiss me. So I did. The kiss started smiling and turned slow. Her hand slid up my chest, over my shoulders, around my neck. The apartment smelled like garlic and tulips in her shampoo. The oven timer beeped, and neither of us moved. Molly mumbled against my mouth. Bread. Probably fine. It'll burn. Tragic. She laughed, pushed at my chest, then kissed me once more before slipping away. You're a bad influence. I've waited years to be promoted. We ate at her tiny table by the window, knees touching underneath. Outside, the city was settling into dusk. Inside, Molly lit 2 candles that didn't match and said, This is date-like, but not the official date, so don't get lazy about Friday. I would never disrespect Friday. Good. For a while, it was easy. We talked about her new job orientation, my latest project, the old woman downstairs who stole everyone's recycling bins and claimed it was wind. Then Molly got quiet, turning her fork between her fingers. What? I asked. She looked at me. I almost called this off. The words hit like cold water. Tonight? She nodded. This morning, I woke up and thought, if we do this and it goes badly, I don't just lose a guy, I lose you. I set my fork down. There it was. The fear under all the flirting. Mine too, wearing her voice. I thought the same thing, I admitted. You did? About 30 times before noon. Her face softened, but worry stayed in her eyes. And I kept coming back to the same thing. I reached across the table, palm up. She put her hand in mine immediately. Not trying wouldn't keep us safe. It would just make us careful forever. Molly looked down at our hands. I don't want careful forever, she whispered. Me neither. What do you want? It was the second time she'd asked me that in 2 days. It still scared me, but less. I want to learn how to love you out loud. Her eyes shone. I squeezed her hand. Not in a billboard way, yet. I don't want to hide behind jokes when I want to touch you. I don't want to call you my best friend because I'm afraid to say more. I want to earn the right to be more. Her lips parted. And I know we can't guarantee anything, I said. But I can promise I won't treat this like an experiment. You're not a maybe to me. Molly stood so suddenly her chair scraped the floor. For one horrible second, I thought I'd said too much. Then she came around the table and climbed into my lap. My hands caught her automatically. Okay, new seating arrangement. Shut up, she whispered and kissed me. This kiss was different. Not the shock of the tent, not the playful warmth of the kitchen. This one had feeling behind it that made my chest ache. She held my face like she was trying to convince both of us she was staying. When she pulled back, her forehead rested against mine. You're not a maybe to me either, she said. You're the person I measure home against. I closed my eyes. Molly brushed her thumb over my cheek. Too much? No. My voice came rough. Possibly fatal, but not too much. She smiled through the shine in her eyes. We stayed like that until the candles burned unevenly and the pasta went cold. Later, we washed dishes side by side. Molly flicked soap bubbles at my shirt. I retaliated by drying one fork with excessive seriousness. She declared me emotionally unavailable to cutlery. It felt impossibly normal. That was the dangerous part. Not the kissing, not the confessions. The normal. The way she fit into every ordinary moment until I couldn't imagine handing any of them back. At 9:30, my phone buzzed on the counter. I glanced at it. My sister, Beth. Mom says Molly posted tulips. Are you finally dating, or do I need to keep pretending I don't know? I stared. Molly leaned over. What? I showed her. She read it, then slowly covered her mouth. Did you post the flowers? I asked. I posted a vase with tulips in it, and no caption. Molly. It was aesthetically pleasing. A second text appeared. Beth. Silence is confirmation. I am emotionally prepared. Molly started laughing, then looked alarmed. Are you mad? No. I set the phone face down. Are you? No, just... She bit her lip. Room, remember? We still have room. Your sister knows. My sister has suspected since 2014. Molly winced. Everyone is going to be unbearable. Probably. She stepped closer, suddenly vulnerable again. Does that make you want to slow down? I slid my hands into hers. No, 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 it makes me want Friday to get here faster. Her smile returned, small but real. Then my phone buzzed again. Beth, tell her I'm happy for you both. Also, Mom wants to know if this means Molly is coming to dinner next Sunday. Too soon? She says not too soon. Molly read it over my arm and groaned. Your mother moves fast? She once bought patio furniture during a hailstorm because it was on sale. I respect her. I tucked a strand of hair behind Molly's ear. We can say no. I know. Or not yet. I know. Her fingers curled around my shirt. Maybe we say dinner is too soon. Okay. But Friday isn't. I smiled. Friday is sacred. And tonight? She looked up at me. Tonight you don't have to leave immediately. My pulse jumped. She rolled her eyes, though her cheeks warmed. I meant we could watch a movie. You're so easy. I said nothing. You thought loudly. I apologize for the volume. We ended up on her couch under the same knitted blanket, an old comedy playing unwatched while she leaned into my side. Halfway through, she tilted her face up. Are you happy? She asked. I kissed her temple. Terrifyingly. Good. She settled closer. Me too. The movie credits rolled. Neither of us moved. Eventually, Molly's breathing evened out, her hand resting over my heart. This time, when I watched her sleep, I didn't feel like I was stealing a glimpse of a life I couldn't have. I felt like she'd opened the door and left the light on. Friday arrived like a test I had studied for badly. I changed shirts twice, even though Molly had already chosen the blue one. I showed up at her door at 7 with a reservation, a clean truck, and the kind of nerves that made me forget how doorbells worked. So I knocked. She opened the door wearing a black dress, silver earrings, and a smile that started confident and turned shy the second our eyes met. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Molly lifted one eyebrow. You're supposed to tell me I look beautiful. I was working up to it. Slow worker. You look beautiful, I said, and there was nothing smooth about it. My voice came out low and honest. Really beautiful. Her teasing softened. Worth the wait. I held out my hand. She looked at it, then at me, and placed her fingers in mine. It was such a small thing. We'd held hands a dozen times since the storm, but this time we walked down her apartment stairs together, dressed for dinner, not hiding from rain or fear or old rules. This time I opened the truck door for the woman I loved, and she let me. Dinner was at a little Italian place downtown with brick walls and candles on every table. Molly ordered confidently, then stole half my dessert with no apology. That's theft, I said. That's dating. I'm learning a lot. You're doing well, solid B+. I wore the shirt. That's why you're not failing. We laughed too loud, touched too often, and kept catching each other smiling like idiots over the rims of our glasses. Every ordinary date thing felt extraordinary because it was us doing it. After dinner, we walked along the river. The air was cool, the water dark and quick beside the path. Molly slipped her hand into the crook of my arm. I was scared tonight would feel pretend, she admitted. Did it? No. She leaned her head against my shoulder. That's what scares me. I stopped walking. She turned to face me beneath a street lamp, her hair shining at the edges. I don't want to scare you, I said. You don't. Losing you does. I took both her hands. Then let's not make fear our compass. Her eyes searched mine. I can't promise we'll never mess this up, I said. I'll probably say the wrong thing. You'll definitely make me eat something suspicious again. Rude but likely. But I can promise I'm not halfway in. I stepped closer. I choose you, Molly. Not because we got trapped in a sleeping bag, not because it's convenient. Because when I picture the life I actually want, you're in every version of it. Her face changed in the quietest, most beautiful way, like she had been bracing for less. She rose on her toes and kissed me beneath the street lamp, slow and certain, with the river moving beside us and the city glowing around us. When she pulled back, her eyes were wet. I choose you too, she whispered, even when you're dramatic about dashboard safety. Especially then. Don't push it. I kissed her again because I could, because she wanted me to, because 10 years of almost had finally become yes. We didn't announce it that night, we didn't need to. But the next Sunday, Molly came to dinner at my mother's house. My mom cried before dessert. Beth said, finally, so many times I threatened to hide her car keys. Molly took it all with flushed cheeks and a brave smile, and under the table, her hand found mine. Later, on the porch, she leaned into me and whispered, "Your family is a lot. You can still run." She looked up at me. I'm not running. By autumn, she had a drawer at my place that somehow turned into half a closet. By winter, I knew which tea she wanted when she had a hard day, and she knew exactly when I was pretending stress was just logistics. We fought sometimes. Of course we did. Our first real argument was over nothing and everything. My habit of going quiet when I was upset, her habit of assuming quiet meant leaving. She stood in my kitchen with tears in her eyes and said, "Don't make me guess where I stand." So I didn't. I learned to say, "I'm overwhelmed, not gone." She learned to say, "I'm scared, not angry." Love, we discovered, wasn't the absence of old wounds, it was the decision not to use them as weapons. By the following spring, we went camping again. Same lake, same pines. Very different weather forecasts checked by both of us, and one park ranger Molly bullied into confirming it. This time, we brought 2 sleeping bags. Molly looked at them in the tent, then looked at me. "Seems wasteful," she said. I crossed my arms. "We are responsible adults." "How tragic." "We also brought real food." She gasped. "You insult my wilderness cuisine?" "I survived your wilderness cuisine." She stepped closer, smiling. "You know, if there's no storm, we'll have to find another excuse." "For what?" "For this." She kissed me, and I forgot the question. That night, we sat by the fire while the lake held the stars in pieces. Molly wore my flannel again, sleeves over her hands, her shoulder tucked against mine. I thought about that first night. The rain, the tiny sleeping bag, her whisper in the dark. "Are you awake?" Back then I thought she was asking if I was sleeping. Now I knew better. She had been asking if I was brave enough to meet her in the moment. If I was done pretending. If I could wake up to what had been there all along. Molly turned her face toward me in the firelight. "What are you thinking?" I took her hand and kissed her knuckles. That I'm glad I answered. Her smile went soft. Years from now, I knew I'd remember her exactly like that. Wrapped in my flannel, lit gold by the fire, looking at me like home wasn't a place we found but something we kept choosing. And when we finally crawled into the tent, we zipped only one sleeping bag open. On purpose. What would you have done if your best friend turned to you in a shared sleeping bag and whispered, "Are you awake?" Have you ever experienced something similar where one small moment changed everything between you and someone you loved? Tell your story in the comments. And for those who'd like to be a little closer to us, we've opened memberships, where you'll get shorter exclusive stories every week with no ads. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.